in that, how do we sabotage God's mission for our life? And point number 2 is that sometimes we may not really want to move on into what God has for us. I know that's strange to say that. But in Numbers chapter 12 and verse 16, notice the wording of it. It says that they were pitched in the wilderness of Paran. Now the word Paran, when you break it down, means in Hebrew, ornamental. In other words, it's one of those trees that has no value at all to a man, but to a woman is very important. Japanese made. Flowering pear tree. Dogwood. To a man, he can appreciate the beauty of that. That's God's wonderful creation. And he does like all men who want to keep the relationship together. He goes out, pays the big money for these things, brings them, helps her to plant them, helps them to put them in the ground, and says, honey, it's beautiful. And he encourages her into it. But all in the back of his mind, the whole time he's doing it, he says, I'd rather be planting an apple tree. I'd rather be planting a pear tree, a plum tree, a grapevine. Anything other than this. What is this going to do for me down the road? But we do it with a smile, loving our wives, and we plant these ornamental things all around the yard instead of that which is going to give you fruit later on. So you with me on that? Ornamental things are pretty to look at, but you can't get a whole lot out of them. They're almost superficial. It's a beautiful tree or a beautiful plant that bears no fruit. And so the wilderness that they were into was actually probably a pretty place on the outside, on the surface. But it had no water source underneath. It was not able to support a nation of people living. It's okay to pass through it. But you can't build camp there. You can't build a city there. You can't stay there. You can't survive there. It was pretty on the outside, on the surface, but underneath was a dry desert, unfertile, unwatered, and very, very unforgiving. And any time that you're living outside of the full, abundant will of God, whether individually or corporately as a church, whenever you're doing that, when you're outside of the full, abundant will of God, you're existing almost into a falsehood. You're living among things that are like facades that are growing around you. Your life is like that. The Paran, the ornamental, the outward is smiling. In other words, you're a Christian that's smiling on the outside, but inside you're miserable. And you're empty. You're looking good, but you're dry as an old dog bone. A good illustration is that you take I'll use a girl going to the prom. It's like sending your daughter to the prom. And you spend $1,000 or $1,200. It's going to come from Daddy, y'all know that. You spend that on your daughter, and she's beautiful, and she's radiant. And for a short while, I mean, she's beautiful in the gown. You take pictures, every hair is in place, and makeup is on. And I'm not here beating up women. I just want to say that. You can do that all you want, girls. But it's not going to change who you are on the inside. And for a few brief moments, you'll be absolutely radiant. You'll look like an angel. You will be beautiful. But if you don't do something about the inside, you will still be an ugly, dried up person on the inside. I'm not calling any of you ugly this morning. I'm just saying. That's who you are until you get into the perfect will of God, where God can pour His Spirit out into your life. And His overflowing abundance of His Spirit can be into your life. And then not only will you glow on the outside, well, you will begin to glow on the outside because you're glowing on the inside. sight, can you see?